Hello, hello. Hello, guys. Hi ho. Nice to see you guys. Welcome to the next meetup. Hey, Meet. Nice to see you, man.
Good to see you as well.
We're gonna wait for 1 minute more, waiting for other hosts to join us. And we're gonna get started. Alan, McDucey, we ask you guys, where are you joining us from?
Yeah, Tyler here. I'm joining from Vancouver, Canada.
Interesting. Ah, yes.
Yeah, we're joining you, Demetrius.
Hi, this is Mansoor here. I'm from India.
Oh, great. Welcome, Naveen. All right. So, uh, the the purpose, guys, for these meetups is to start conversation and share our thoughts, ideas about the common topic and the topic where we have this interest. And we're gonna bring into the conversation today the approach of building knowledge graphs and the challenges we can face on having that. And to guide us on this conversation, I'm gonna talk about a case study I worked very recently, which was to take YouTube video transcripts from a branding consultant and extract all the useful information from their inside and transfer them into a knowledge graph database. So from there, I can use an LLM that can access this knowledge and interact with it. Interact means push my questions, get the feedback, and also build the ontology of this consultant who can help me to solve a problem I may have just from his side, just using the text he puts on public on YouTube. Before we get started, may I ask you guys, do you all work with knowledge graphs and graph databases? Do you have previous experiences? Feel free to turn on your microphones and share your experiences. That would be great.
Yeah, so I haven't worked with knowledge graphs, but I feel I'm just getting started, and I feel there is some use for it in our. I work for Cisco, and there are routers and switches software where there's a huge database, and there are objects which are related to each other. So I think by using the knowledge graphs, I can get deep insights into the relations between the objects and the connections between them. I can query and find out missing links or whatever, do an audit. I think that would be a good use case. That's why I'm interested in learning about this. I'm just getting started.
Wonderful. Very nice. Anybody else?
Yeah, we're mainly with the Neo4j, and I got some courses from there, and following along their examples, especially that Neo4j, they have the free training, and they're having this movie industry kind of building knowledge graph there. So the reason I'm here just to get another use case and to get hands-on, basically. Especially from your post, Dimitris, it was very interesting. So just wanted to learn how you do that.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing. It's nice to hear that. Before, I think what is important to be mentioned before we get into the workflow of this conversation is that the core thing about building knowledge graphs and knowledge databases, it's not actually right on to the tools. It's mostly about on our goal and the purpose of the project. So based on that, we're gonna decide how we're gonna structure this knowledge base. The tools is mostly about how we're gonna handle the workflow, but we have to do all the brainstorming before we get started that it's needed to make it totally clear with our colleagues, the team, what we want to achieve. In the previous conversation with Meet, we discussed very deeply about that and figured out of multiple different approaches and how we can get the results we want by putting the right goals and focusing on the goals. So from the case, I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Give me a moment. It's here. I'm gonna show you first my Neo4j result. Here, this is the knowledge graph, how it looks like. Actually, what I did was I took 15 videos for a specific consultant. I really follow him and I admire, I like him. I like what he says and I like his style. Okay, here is the list of the videos I used. This is Chris Doe. He's actually creative, but he has a pretty good experience, and he shares a lot of videos and thoughts about building your personal brand. He had a personal single conversation, just videos by himself, talking to the camera, sharing his ideas and suggestions. And also he has a couple of conversations with other experts into the market, making a brainstorming conversation that can bring us a lot of ideas. So I selected very carefully all those videos from his channel where he talks about the branding stuff and the personal branding more specifically. So I grabbed everything and I processed to the URL to a transcript extractor, and I used the transcript into my Claude desktop, where I had already configured the Neo4j MCP server. And why I did that? Because I wanted to feed the transcript into Claude, okay? And have a conversation about the transcript with Claude, with AI, just to figure out what's going to be the best data structure for my graph database. And after that, I could use Neo4j MCP server to process the data into my knowledge graph database, into Neo4j. And this is the result. We have 15 videos. All the green dots are one of the videos. So we see around of each video, there are a couple of other nodes surrounding it and related with that one. A few of them have also relationship with others. We're gonna see that. What exactly is it? And I left only this guy alone. And if I click here to expand it, we will see the relationships, because this is a video that relates with most of the other things. Look at how this thing changed, because we have the relationships with other nodes into the database. And the thing is, when I was started, I needed to put down my goals so I could define my methodology and figure out what exactly I want to achieve. And I had two goals, guys, from this analysis. The first one was to analyze all of his guys and his attendees to his podcast ideas and suggestions about the personal branding. So I can build later on the ontology of these guys and use them as AI consultants into my process with AI tools. And the other goal I had was to analyze their conversation in terms of making video, making the content. So I wanted to figure out how can I make a similar quality video like them. It's not about the camera, it's not about the stack around only. These are things that really matter, but the hook and the way you structure your conversation into the entire video really, really matters. And I would love to have suggestions for that thing. So when I started, I didn't start using only one transcript. I used 3 of them. And why 3 of them? Because I wanted to find the common things. And I came up front into one challenge. The first one was the similar things. While we have we have many videos, actually, in many of them, they talk about the same thing. And sometimes they talk exactly about the same thing, putting out exactly the same approach. And in some cases, they talk for a similar thing related with the other one, or they make a point very, very close to that one. So I wanted to have a structure that can figure out this kind of relationships, okay? And this is very important. So the model later on that can access this knowledge graph will not be confused. It can understand that those things are similar or they are very close, but they are different or they're related with different nodes in our database. And the second thing in my challenges was the repeatings. There are many values that are repeating so much. And these things should have a different weight on what we're doing. So if the consultant says the same value proposition 5 times, it's totally different than he mentions that for 1 time or for 2 times. I have to take care more about it in my process later on when I'm going to build the ontology. So before we investigate in here, let's see the entire workflow analysis. This is a document generated by Claude, my Claude desktop, while I was doing the brainstorming with Claude about extracting the schema of my graph database. So we put it 10 areas to focus: the video level analysis, the speaker analysis, the content extraction, messages, and actually the message flow, taking care about the timeline, sequences, conclusions, 4 values of each message, communication techniques they use, so I can learn from these ontologies later how to communicate my messages, attribution and ownership, who owns its idea, because sometimes in those transcripts they mention, oh, I read this book, or I met this guy who said this thing. So for me, it's important to know who said what thing. And also, when we have the transcript, it's not that easy for us. We read just text, right? I had to validate that the AI can understand who says what. So these words belong to Dimitris, or the other words belong to Crystal, for example. Then, Very important point is about the relationships. So we can build the relationships putting rich description. This is important for models. So we can know from the relationship arrow some details about this relationship between the nodes. This can help the AI later to understand exactly what is the role of this relationship and how it can use it to understand the exact message. Then I asked Claude to give me his or its confidence scores and justifications. So every time, for every output he was giving me, I wanted to know the confidence score of AI doing his analysis, and into notifications, I wanted to see why he made this decision, why he brought this relationship, why he created this node, and so on. Then I wanted him to run a quality check. So before we do the final import of all the data but create it into the Claude desktop conversation, okay, we wanted to verify that what we extracted are correct and accurate based on the transcript. So he had to do a double check by itself. And then we had to do concept mapping. So for the concepts, the ideas, we should not create duplicate concepts, but we should link the concepts with the new inputs. Khaled, I see your hand.
Yeah, so the first question, do you allow that we interrupt or to have questions at the end?
Absolutely. Here we are to talk. And it's amazing to having you all guys into the conversation.
Okay, so yeah, so thank you so much for that. So the question that I have at this moment here, so this was part of your prompt, right? The Claude did not come with all of those areas. It was you specified exactly this is what you want to have there with the key output and everything.
Correct. Absolutely correct. Yeah. And this actually came by doing a brainstorming with Claude. What I did was I just took 3 transcripts, gave them to him, and said, okay, look, I want to have an analysis for at the video quality level and the messages, the suggestions this guy shares. And after that, I was talking with my Claude, and during my conversation with Claude, I figured out which are the questions I want my analysis to be able to answer. So I took a break, I put a couple of questions down and said, okay, look, I will build a knowledge graph that can that's gonna be created from those transcripts, and the AI using those information can answer those questions. And here is the point. When we create a knowledge graph, we don't have to go right to the tool. We have to think about the concept, the idea, and the purpose, the goal. What we want to achieve. So I wanted to achieve answering those questions. And I expect if anybody here had exactly the same data to process, you may have guys totally different approach, totally different ideas, totally different thoughts. So you could make your own adjustments. It's totally fair.
If you can add also to that, and yeah, I will lower my hand now. This would be the follow up for that. 2 things. First, if you give that was your goal, but at the end is to interact with this knowledge graph or with this database when you ask questions. Then it's typically that referring to the analysis that you did through by building this a knowledge graph, right? It's like the RAG of your what you're interacting, building that maybe chatbot at the end. So the chatbot will answer based on the information being fed to this a knowledge graph. So the other question, which is, I think, like, I'm speaking myself about also this flood of tools here and there. So why you landed with Claude from the beginning? For example, like I'm here, I'm assuming I'm a very newbie of this field, and I say like, yeah, I hear Dimitri say Claude, I hear someone else saying Notebook LM. It's the best in researching this and that. So like, what's your thought process? Why you select Claude? Is it because you get more experience with it? You actually, like the good point that you mentioned, you interacted with it, you ask, you have a conversation with Claude. So is that the reason that you selected Claude to be part of your stack here?
Yeah, very good question. The reason I prefer to use Claude, actually, there are two reasons. The first one is like, I like how this model understands that the random text, the unstructured data and texts. I'm pretty happy with the analysis he can do. I'm pretty happy with the memory he keeps into the conversation. So I'm happy using it. But this doesn't mean we have to go with this LLM. You guys have to select the LLM that works for you and makes sense for you. Definitely. Okay? The second reason I use Claude is that into my Claude desktop, I can have the MCP server from Neo4j, which means I can show you exactly, if you want it. Let me switch myself into my Claude for a moment. This is the conversation where I took all the output. So from here, I can ask him to feed the data into my database. And let me scroll a bit. It's logging now. Oh, he's at the very, very top. Here's how the conversation gets started. Sorry, right. Here is how he extracts the data. For example, let me show you here. It's the summary. We have the conversation. Okay, let's process it to knowledge base, please, is my message. And look at what he does. He knows the context from here, and he starts creating the queries. And behind the scenes, he feeds these data into my knowledge graph. I didn't touch any piece of code while I was working here, because my goal was to focus on building the knowledge graphs. I didn't want to spend time with technical stuff and all of this. My goal was to build a very valuable knowledge database for that purpose. This comes from Neo4j MCP server, who runs in the behind the scenes. He lives in here. I have all these Zoom pop-ups. Yeah. So here I have my Neo4j MCP server, and this is a configuration we done before and runs. And this can the MCP server can work also in other LLMs. I think also into ChatGPT you can have it. But for me, adding it into Claude was quite easy, quite straightforward process. It takes 2 minutes to be added, and that's fine.
Demetrius, yeah, question. Right. First, before that, Khalid, one thing about the models that's kind of interesting. I mean, Claude is really good at tool calling, for sure. But Gemini 3 I've been playing with a little bit, and what's interesting about that, you don't have the same kind of access to MCPs in the most natural way, unless you're doing it through like cursor or something like that. But the context window is a million tokens, which far outshines what Claude can do, even though Claude, I mean, you can get extra via the API, but it's the most friendly. When processing a lot of text, that's the one consideration that I've been playing with, because I've always used Claude as well, but Gemini 3 is pretty impressive in that regard. Anyway, for what it's worth. But Dimitris, I was curious about the knowledge graph, how you, if I'm understanding correctly, what we were looking at the visualization, all of those clusters were individual videos that were not necessarily connected together. Is that right?
We have 15. Oh, thanks, Ray, for the message. We have 15 nodes of videos, and let me turn back into that. So we're going to be in the same page. So if not all, yeah. Let me close this big one. So we have 15 videos, which are the green ones. And as you can see, there are common things since there are relationships from one video to another. And they usually meet through the common thing. Like this is a common topic mentioned into two different videos. But all of those groups of clusters, as you mentioned, are outputs from the centralized video into here. All of those things, they are related here.
I mean, the question I have is, and it sort of goes to that weighting system that you have. I get the idea that, the same concept can be used in multiple videos and, how you weight that, which is interesting. But, given that this is the corpus of this guy's, this is coming from his, and so there's so many similarities because it's his sort of mental model, so to speak, that wouldn't you want to be able to, let's say, take an example from one video and be able to tie it to a concept or a conclusion from another one? Because they're artificially separated by the videos, which makes sense. But then, isn't there a lot of like missing context that could be enriched if you were to just create a single node that organized all of it?
That's a very good point. We definitely could have it, but the thing is, I wanted to process video by video the outputs because I wanted later in my model to have the exact reference where and why, where do you find this information? So why do you give me this information so I can audit my model later on? Why, based on the responses I get. And I really thought about combining them in one, but I figured out that, okay, if I combine, how exactly can I have this information from my final scope? Do you think that, from your perspective, do you think that we could have this information if we had combined?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think so I think it touches on two things. One, yes, I think you could insert it as, part of the schema for the nodes. So, you record where the source is and, have multiple sources, for example, for a particular idea. But the other thing is the similarity, and this is something that I was doing, going through multiple transcripts as well, is, what do you do with those similar ideas? And instead of keeping them separate, if you were to create a single organized idea and have all of the whatever metadata you want to associate with that, then it hypothetically it allows for a much more rich hopping experience for the LLM because there are going to be more nodes connected to the same idea versus like, well, this representation of the idea over here is connected here, and this representation here is only connected there, which I also think gets into some of the complexities of the,
Yeah,
the models, processing it in the first place, extracting all of it. It's hard to trust that they're actually making all those possible connections.
for sure. And this is a very good point. and I faced that while I was working on similarities of common ideas. And I decided to move forward like that because I couldn't trust the model recognizing the similarity. Okay, because what I found for the 3 videos I was working for, I listened them many times. So for my brain can remember what did they say, what is the repeating thing, and so on by myself. And I realized that, okay, they mention many times the same thing, but in this conversation, they mention something very close, not exactly that thing. It's relative, but not the exact thing as a message. And from your idea in the past, you shared meets in a previous meetup about giving weights and those things. So I told him into my Claude, or while he was doing the analysis, find the similar things and actually put them into messages and topics. This is the main node that collects them, and put the repeating rate. So if the same topic mentioned 3rd time, turn this thing to 3 as a numerical value into their schema and the metadata. And from that way, we understand that, okay, this topic repeated multiple times, or we have it, the same question, we have it 3rd time, and so on. This is how I handle, because of they were in the same family of context, but it wasn't exactly the same thing. And for transcripts with conversations, the other guy into the conversation had something different to say. That's what makes podcasts very valuable. We get into a podcast, we talk about the common thing, but you have something different or something extra to mention, which makes the topic different.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think the audit trail is really the trickiest part if you're really looking to be able to pinpoint where it's coming from. Because from an enriching standpoint for the model, even if it's not exactly the same, the similarities and the richness of, like the connections, I just wonder out loud if that might actually be more valuable than potentially overwriting. But again, I get it. Like if you're trying to audit where exactly it's coming from, that becomes a little trickier. And the other thing I wonder about is with the semantic search. If you have at the very beginning, if the model is saying, okay, I'm going to look for this thing, and it does the semantic search, but there are 10 different variations of the same thing, then it has to decide which variation is most similar. Is it going to miss out on other context at the same time? I don't know. I mean, because your points are really valid. I mean, they're appropriate challenges to face. I'm just sort of,
Yeah, you're doing very good points. For that thing, what I faced? Yeah, it can get confused. Okay. While I was testing it into Claude Desktop, giving him questions, I put different prompts instead of asking immediately to use to tell me how many times they talk about the personal branding and the importance of personal branding. I gave them a question of give me how the importance of building my personal branding. So he had to think by itself what exactly data he has to handle from the back. And I think the prompting here can handle this thing, this missed opportunity from the prompt. Even if we deploy an AI agent that's gonna access these knowledge graph, and we tell him specifically how to use the data he finds, I think we can guide him to not be confused. To be honest, I didn't work in building agents based on this node graph. That's my next step, definitely. But this is, I will experiment on that. Another thing that comes to my mind right now is that, okay, we have only one consultant at the moment and we analyze him. Okay, what if we want to bring one other to do that and build another methodology? I think in that way, we could compare the outputs from each one. Again, using their YouTube transcripts from the content they post. I don't know exactly what is the best approach for that, to be honest, but I would definitely love to see how those two people can agree into the same topic or disagree to the same topic.
Man, just off the top of my head, I think that, obviously you could have separate knowledge graphs for each person, which I think is valuable in its way. Or if you have it all within one knowledge graph, I think that's when you have to probably instruct the flow to do the hop twice. So it searches one person and goes and retrieves it and then does it again.
Yeah, that's true.
So you could probably do it that way, but it's a good question.
But as you grow with the I think there's a cost for it to consider, especially with the Neo4j as well. When you scale, when you get bigger and bigger, the cost will be, I think, huge there.
This is true. This is true. Yeah. At the moment, I'm running into the free instance, and yeah, the more we expand the nodes, the number of nodes and the information into them, the more data space we consume into the same instance. So we're gonna face the limit. So for something bigger and bigger, more enterprise level thing, we would need to think about it more seriously. But I think it's a nice opportunity to give it an MVP version here, because we can MVP it, we can test it, and using the same instance and the same transcripts, we can change the analysis we do and feed the data into the same instance. They can live together without affecting. And we can tell the model, do not relate them. Give all the existed nodes a flag that these came from the analysis number one, and the next one input will have a flag about, okay, this is from the analysis number two. So then we can compare them using the same instance, the same data, everything the same. Just we change the analysis, which at the end of the day, that's the point about building the knowledge graph. Not the tech stuff, but how we're gonna structure this information as a brain. So here we see the output. Any other question, guys, you have about Neo4j? Any kind of thing. We all have questions and learnings, and as you see, we already we discussed about the best approach. There's no guarantee, but this is the best approach. From my perspective, the best approach relates on what you want to achieve, and that's the core point for the core message I wanna share today with all of you guys. It depends on what we want to achieve, definitely. Would you like to see how the MCP server can work from the Claude desktop? So we can give him questions And let me switch my sharing. Here we are. So I will drag and drop to the bottom. And let's test it. Into this conversation, Claude has access into the nodes graph. So we can put a question like those here from my testing. I gave him a question here. What is the most repeated message? He decided what exactly he has to query. And here is the query exactly, the cipher. This runs behind the scenes. He executes the query. And here he gets the answer and prepares to the answer from me down here. So when I asked what is the most repeated message, he said vulnerability as strength. He grouped the messages, and here he explains why he did and how. He said that he puts the exact phrases, because into the analysis I asked to save these as quotes. I wanted to save quotes also separate as separate notes, because for my purpose again, I want to use quotes. It's quite easier to be memorable and remarkable for our brains. Caleb, with your permission, sir, what is the question you would like to put into the chat right here? Ask our nodes graph.
That's a very good point. I just like the. It's and there's another thing which I also had some reflection on that. So you have one consultant, he talked to so many people and they discuss so many topics there, and you ask like, what's the most common thing on those videos, right? So I would say, yeah, maybe go for it depends. Like he's mainly on branding, right? So this person, personal branding. Is it? Yeah. So yeah, let's shoot for something like yeah, in general. What's the best approach to to have a LinkedIn summary section? Because it's one of the things a lot of personal branding folks they talk about how you.
And I will mention here use. Oh no. That's pretty interesting. By the way, I don't remember if they, in all those videos, if they mention something about specifically for a LinkedIn summary section. It will be very interesting to see what it's gonna find. Let me search. The interesting thing is how he understands the context here. We gave him the question. And what he's gonna ask the knowledge base.
And if he didn't find anything, we'll say reply to you as I couldn't find anything, or it will just like reply to you with some generic answer.
This depends how we tell the Claude right now to give us responses. It's about how we do the prompt. Okay, if I start a new project and put this into my prompt saying, look, don't give me something outside of the knowledge base, and if you don't find anything, please mention it. You solve the trouble of AI creativity, which is, I don't like it. Nobody likes that.
Exactly. So what's the reason of building this knowledge graph and on this knowledge database? If you'll just come with some weird ideas from the internet.
That's true.
Yeah.
And here, that's why it's worth it to think about the next level of this project, using the knowledge base. Okay, using the MCP server, it's a nice way to build it, test it, validate your ideas without getting in troubles with technical stuff and all of these things, because the core value again is right on the knowledge base. And after that, if you want to use it building your own mental model, or if you want to build an AI agent who will have access only to this information to make decisions and so on, as the next level, you just go, you can use Claude Code, for example, from here, and you can tell him, look, I want you to create me an AI agent who's gonna audit the content based on these principles from Chris Do, and give me the feedback. What would Chris Do would say to me as a feedback into my questions? Okay, and then you manage what he's doing, because right here into the conversation, the model has too much freedom to go for searching and so on. But of course, if we specify that into our message, we expect it will not do it. Now, the reason it takes that much time is that because this conversation is quite long, and he creates summaries to refresh its memory. Something I really like into Claude because it remains consistent. And now I think he's blocked. Oops. Here it is. Play big, not small. Concept appear 3 times. Application. Talk about symptoms, not services. High confidence, 98%. The confidence is about how confident was the model when he was importing the data, and also about his understanding right now. Describe what your ideal clients are experiencing, their brain infrastructure symptoms, rather than what you offer. Application starts with their word and not yours. His suggestions coming from these texts. One character. Practical LinkedIn summary structure, open hook. Most consultants spend 80 hours building the wrong systems. You know your story matters, but every time you sit down to write, to be honest, I didn't expect it because I didn't remember having this section about the summary section on LinkedIn profiles. And here, because he knows me from other conversations, he gave me a summary. Most business consultants talk about strategy and transformation. I talk about the 3M moment, when you realize your systems are fighting against you, not for you. I am Dimitris, founder of 3 Nuggets. My background, farming and pharmacy. These are 2 other activities I run, which taught me that complex systems only work when you actually understand from them the ground up. The thing is, he does not too many things for me because he needs a couple of information. But I would expect if I had to work with this and brainstorming to make it to perfection, he could help me to do something alone. I would never be able to go. And that's the point. What to avoid? That's pretty good. Helen, you gave us a nice question. Thanks, sir.
No, because that's the purpose. I want to save my time watching those 15 videos, for example. You're talking about this particular person. So what about if I am providing consultancy to other folks, and I want to be equipped with and this is the thing about AI, about this technology these days. I can be supported by many influencers in the background if I have the right tool, if I structure the data in my database the right way, so I can pick someone, help someone by just typing a question based on the knowledge I built. So yeah, that's an outcome. For example, the reason I mentioned that example is to see if at the end, as an end user, am I getting what I'm looking for, or it will struggle with such question.
That's a very good point. And let's be honest, guys, everybody would love to have a conversation at least once per week with a consultant like Chris Doe, or maybe Alex Hormozy, and all of those big brands of consulting, right? We already spent too much time joining their podcasts and hearing them, but we would love to have their personal approach for business, right? This is a semi way to do it. Or yes, of course, right? You can get all my YouTube transcripts, all my conversations, and get it. And here's a very nice pass from Ray. What is another approach of using knowledge graph is in building digital twins, the core subject of those meetups we do here. And there is the challenge of, okay, but basically for those who don't know exactly what a digital twin is, let me explain it. Digital twin is like we create a digital clone of an object so we can work with this clone. What is the object? The object can be a person, Dimitris. The object can be his department. He works in the marketing department of the organization. The object can be the client or even the entire organization. And the reason of using a digital twin is building a place where we can simulate different situations. We can find hidden opportunities for us, like what did we avoid and we should not. And also have live updates into our new ontology, because the clone, the digital twin, and the simulator, they have a big difference. The digital twin receives live data every single day or every week. It depends on how the data are generated. He receives data to adjust the knowledge graph and all of the informative systems. So, as Khaled mentioned, I would love to have this conversation with those guys. Great. We have to decide what information we want to feed. Here, we just used YouTube videos, right? I didn't touch their social media content. And I didn't touch their strategy into their social media. And I think it would be very interesting if we could collect them, which is quite easy from data scrapping. There are also services that can give us this data, and feed this into the knowledge base and see, okay, this guy applies this methodology into Instagram, for example, and this methodology into LinkedIn. This is how often he posts. This is what is his terminology. This is how he thinks about, and everything like that. But then it's becoming bigger and bigger and more challenging. But that's why we love this thing of the challenges. The challenges we love to handle.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Yeah.
I haven't really played with the Neo4j MCP, and I've only done it through GraphRag. My question is, what is the circumstance where using Cypher through the MCP could actually deliver better or different results than GraphRag? It's an open question. I don't know if there's an easy answer, but I'd never really thought it through until now.
To be honest, from my side, I never I never thought to compare those two things. From my so far use of MCP server into the nodes graph, I feel that every time in all my experiments, Claude, at least here into the MCP, can can understand what I'm saying and can find what I'm looking for to bring it to me. I don't know. This is how I understand it. The knowledge graph in Aura database is actually the RAG for the system.
I mean, when I was looking at the documentation for Neo4j for their MCP, it looks like it's just doing, I mean, they have different servers, but that it's basically just composing cipher and searching that way to collect the data. I don't think it's doing any kind of semantic searching.
So they so if I allow me to ask here, so your point mentions the instead of typing here, asking the questions, go directly to run cipher queries of Neo4j. I didn't get your point.
Yeah, so what Demetrius is doing is with the MCP, it's basically creating the cipher to search the database and pull out, right? Mm-hmm. The graph RAG is the approach that I've been using, which is different in the sense that it, you know, all of the components of the graph have embeddings associated with them, which is, you know, so when the model hooked up the graph RAG pipeline, the model will do a semantic search first to find all the possible nodes that relate to the query, like to whatever the prompt is. And then from there, it will run the hops and you know, follow the relationships and gather the context that way. So it's doing a semantic search, which is not, I don't think, possible with Cypher. So, but at the same time, it's not as structured as Cypher in terms of, well, you want to find all of the things that relate to blank. Mm-hmm. But I'm not a Cypher expert, so I don't really know if there's that kind of search available with the right kind of Cypher construction.
From what I know, they offer the ability to store the embeddings into the node. And into those embeddings, we can also store the vectorized data. So we can have into the embeddings those numbers creating from vectorizing the information. Those numbers. And they can live into the metadata. But I never test them. I never did it.
A good test. Right. Splash. I like that. Let's go about it.
Great. Guys, we are at the end of the session. Thank you very much for joining the conversation. It was a very humble meetup. We joined here to share our experiences and ideas, so we learn all together. Hope you'll learn something, and also we will be in touch afterwards. We're gonna run other sessions, and for the next Friday, the same time, I'm gonna put the link into the chat. We're gonna run office hours for building meaningful knowledge graphs. So we can get into the conversation where I'm very glad to get into everyone's project and case study and work together, sharing our ideas and thoughts how we can solve this problem, the challenge, and learn from that. I'm putting the link into the chat. And of course, I'm going to send it to you also into a follow-up email that will follows. Thanks, everybody. Wish you a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Dmitry.
Take care.
All right. Bye. Thanks.